hope that you're well.
Assalamu alaikum. I hope you're well as well. So today's video a little different. I'm not cooking anything. There's no recipe. This video is to talk about perceptions. In particular, perceptions about Pakistan. Why Pakistan? That's because that's where I'm from. And you knew bits about Pakistan probably before we got together, we got married, and we'll ask Faye what her perceptions were before and if anything has changed since the time we got married. So let's get started with this video. We have formulated few questions which I'll be asking her. It's on her phone, and let's see what she has to say. Okay, so the first one, very straightforward. What did you know about Pakistan before we met?
Okay. To be honest, didn't really know that much. I knew a bit about the history of like British rule, partition. You learn it in school and stuff. And I knew it was an Islamic country. Knew where it was on a map, but that was probably about it, really. Yeah.
So very limited
I think
knowledge about Pakistan before.
Actual knowledge, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Considering you did travel here and there
Yeah,
near Pakistan.
Absolutely, yeah. So I travelled. So my mum and dad took me travelling quite a lot as a child, and I've been quite a lot to India, about 4 times, and I was 11 when I first went. So yeah, I knew of like the region. I'd been to Asia, but I didn't really know actually about Pakistan, and never had I visited or anything.
And since you mentioned that your parents did take you a couple of times to India, did they ever consider going to Pakistan? And if they don't, if they did not, maybe
Why?
What was the reason?
So yeah, we never went to Pakistan, and it was never considered as a place to travel to. But my parents, I wouldn't say, are the kind of parents who would maybe take Western holidays. They were quite happy to take me and my younger brother, who were children at the time, to India. Some people consider India even not being safe in some places. So they were travellers, really. They really did enjoy going to exotic places. But Pakistan was never considered. I think the idea was that it was not safe, and potentially something might happen. I think also because of this idea of it as being an Islamic country, maybe my mum didn't feel that comfortable sort of as a woman going there, or my dad would have felt like a lot of responsibility taking like young children maybe. And I think for that reason there was this idea that it wouldn't be a safe place to go, or that we wouldn't be welcomed, and actually things would be quite reserved and restrictive, and then that wouldn't make for a nice holiday, I think was the idea.
You've touched on the point that there was this idea. Of course, they had never been to Pakistan, you had never been to Pakistan, but you had this idea.
Yeah, exactly.
And if I asked you where did that idea come from, what would your reply be?
So so I went to India when I was 11. I wouldn't really have known about world politics at 11, but I think mum and dad probably would. They definitely would have, and they would have just seen the media in the West and just accumulated ideas that it was a dangerous place to go, and not considered the fact that even if there was some dangerous places, even at any point, it's a huge country, and there would have been plenty of safe places to go, I'm sure, just like any place on this earth.
But it's very important the way media, in my experience and opinion, sometimes do is that they would just label everything under the same umbrella, whatever they would like people to believe about a certain thing. And I believe that's exactly what they did by painting the whole of Pakistan with the same brush, and that's probably what created these ideas, which I would say false ideas, in the heads of people who were travelers from the Western countries going to Asia and never considering Pakistan being, in my opinion, probably the most beautiful country in Asia.
And I think like whenever you go to these countries, there are travel restrictions. The government here do advise tourists, whether it's safe or not, and what areas to go to and stuff. And it's the same with India. And yet my parents were happy to take two young children, my dad's wife, to India for a holiday, and yet there would have been similar, probably I assume maybe even more travel advice for Pakistan, but yet they wouldn't consider that one. But what I'm trying to say is that my parents were quite happy to go somewhere that was that had
the
travel
same,
restrictions
but
and stuff. Yeah, exactly.
they might had.
So there must have been something there for them not to consider it at all.
So it was basically an idea
Yeah.
which might have stemmed from the fact that whatever they were watching on the media generated that idea in their heads.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you, did your parents or you as a child, then later on as a teenager, or by the time you went to India last time,
Yeah.
did you know that what sort of a country Pakistan might be like in terms of whether it would be a very rocky country, a very plain country, would there be beaches, what sort of country? If you had an idea back then, what was...
Okay, so the last time I went to India, I was probably about 18, and I went to Delhi, and I've also been to the south of India as well. And I know from visiting India that it does have quite a vast climate, and like the nature and all of this stuff is very different. So I would have assumed that Pakistan would have been similar. However, I did not know that about the mountains and how I think some of them are even some of the biggest in the world. I think looking at a map, I probably would have known you had a little bit of beach in Karachi and stuff, I think. But I think I would have assumed it was quite dry and definitely not as vast as I know it is now.
Okay.
And particularly how beautiful it is as well. I didn't.
You had any thoughts of what the people might be like in Pakistan, what the food might be like?
Okay, people. I know from travelling that people are generally very nice and very kind-hearted and would definitely help someone, especially if they assume that you weren't from a local person. However, I do think that I would have felt that maybe Islamic country might not have been as welcoming, particularly to women. I would have probably felt like I would definitely have to stay with my dad and maybe consider what I wear a little bit. And I just feel like the people would have helped me if I needed it, or if I, whatever I needed. But I do think that it might have been a bit reserved and maybe not as welcoming, I think. Yeah.
And what about the food? Did you think that we had similar food to India, or...
I think so. I think obviously I know what you like halal, that concept of halal and the food rules around that. So I would have known, I think, that there would have been sort of no alcohol, no pork, and this kind of rules. But I think I would have thought in terms of like food, it would have been similar, just because you are like next door to each other and you must have similar spices and produce grown in India and Pakistan, and you were part of the same country. So I would have thought it would probably be a similar ballpark, probably, yeah.
Okay, so that was all the knowledge or the feelings, the ideas. Feelings, again, I believe, were based on the opinions created by the media.
Yeah. And I think actually my opinions were probably, considering I was a child when I was going to India, and I think they were definitely either come from the media or from other people, like other Western people. I hadn't actually talked to many Pakistanis at all, so I didn't actually know myself from a true source what it was like, or actually had I approached someone and asked questions that I wanted to know the answer to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thing is, when media creates an opinion, it's called public opinion. The reason for that is everyone starts believing what they see and hear on the media. And when you're getting your information from other people, like you said, from here, I would say that is similar to watching what's on the media, because their source of information is the same media. So it's opinions created by media.
Of course.
In my opinion.
No, I think you're right.
Okay, so what has changed then? What are your thoughts on Pakistan?
So now that I've met a Pakistani.
Now that you're married to a Pakistani.
Married to a Pakistani. Okay.
The reason I'm saying it because we have been together for a long time now.
Yeah.
And you have known me as a person. You know all my family. You speak with them, and you know all my friends. You've met few of my friends, their families. So you have a fair idea.
Yeah.
I say fair because you haven't visited Pakistan yet.
Yeah.
But you have a fair idea on what the values are, what the culture is, and how it might be if you are to go to Pakistan, what to expect.
Yeah. Okay, so what my thoughts are now would be, well, firstly, I think it's completely misunderstood, a country, and probably not portrayed in the best way, because I think a lot of my perceptions probably weren't true, or exaggerated from the knowledge that I had. So that's the first thing. And I would say that I didn't, because my parents never considered it a place to go, I think I then kind of cut it off as a place to go as well. And actually, in terms of like tourism and how much there is for somebody who's looking to go somewhere from the West to somewhere completely new, it's got so much to offer. And I remember feeling like that when I went to India. I just thought, wow, this is like so much different from anything I know from back home. And I think I'm going to feel exactly the same way in Pakistan. I just think there's so much that you can there's too much to even do in one trip. So it's going to be, hopefully we'll go soon, and there'll be, many trips to go and see all sorts of different things. But my thoughts are now that I'm so excited. I know the kind of things that I want to do, from visiting cities to exploring some of the nature and the things that you have, fabulous mountains and things. And I know that because I've got an interest now and I've watched other people go, how welcomed they are. And actually, when you're from a country that's so misunderstood and tourism isn't that vast yet, you're probably really welcome to see a non-local person just be respectful and interested in a country, and therefore you're received really well, regardless of if you're a girl or a boy or any age. I think, and I think from what I've learned about the way that your values are, how you would just be open to helping anyone, and particularly if they weren't local. So those kind of fears completely have gone, and I think my knowledge on the food and what to expect definitely has grown since being with you. But I just feel that I'm no longer worried. I've realised that a lot of this is just someone's opinion, some public opinion, and actually it's really important that you come up with your own opinion and do your own research, because it's often not the case at all. And of course, as long as you go there with a bit of knowledge on how to behave and how to be respectful, which is important wherever you go on this planet, actually I think it's going to be the most wonderful experience when I eventually go, and I think I'll be received very well.
Yeah, because once you experience it, you'll know of it. Go to, for example, the tribal areas in the north, and they, whichever village you go to or whichever tribe you go to, they treat you as guest of that village, and you get all the treatment. You won't be expected to pay for anything at all, and you'll be looked after, and you'll be protected by the local tribe there. So it's a beautiful country.
But you were talking about protection, and this is something that, had I talked about my perceptions before I knew Pakistan, protection wouldn't have uttered my mind. And actually there's probably some kind of advice saying that you would need someone to protect you in a country like that, and you'd need some kind of guard or something. And actually the fact is that I think I would genuinely feel so protective, even as a woman, that nothing would happen to me, and that if I found myself, my car's broken down, anything, I feel like I could approach and ask anybody, and they would do what they can. Of course, there are people in every country, in every little community, that let the side down and don't behave in the great way. But I think the vast majority of people would be extremely helpful, and I think would protect a foreigner, just purely because of how unfortunate it's been that Pakistan has been portrayed in such a negative light. And these are the people themselves trying to change that image and welcome and give, people. So when I come back home and I tell my friends that I had the most wonderful time, maybe one of them would want to go in the future. I think that's what's important, and that's true, source of knowledge, not just the media, anyway.
Okay. Next one is, since the time we are married, has my values, which are again values from my heritage, from my background, from my religion, influenced your life in any way?
That's a good question. I think it has. Absolutely. I love my family. I'm very, very close with my family. But I really understand the importance of looking after and being family orientated, looking after people around you. And I love the kind of life setup of respecting everyone, whether they're older or younger than you. I love that, and I think I've taken that as something that is a little that is just missing in this country. Both my grandparents, they live on their own. They're very old and vulnerable. But actually, the fact that you grew up with your grandma and your other relatives and cousins, I think is just wonderful. And I think that is something that is just missing here, or has been lost in this country. So I love that. So my values, I think, towards my family, I look after them a lot more, I respect them a lot more. One day when we have a child, I feel like I want this child to know its heritage. I want it to be proud to be a Pakistani. I want it to be raised with similar values and beliefs that you have. And I think that alone shows that I have total respect for Pakistanis and Islam, and I think that actually it's a wonderful thing for a child to have and grow up with, and it's definitely something that I would definitely want. So I think a lot has changed in my life in terms of a vast amount. I could go on for ages thinking back to how I was before I met you, but I just feel safe and content, and I feel like I really understand marriage. I actually didn't really care so much about being married before, and now I understand how strong our relationship is because we are married, and how much I can rely on you, and it's just it's been a blessing to have someone who's from a completely different walk of life influence and challenge my thought process on things. And just, you can then pick and choose whatever you want in your life.
I hope that challenge has not been has been forced on you.
No, of course not. No, absolutely not. Nothing's been forced. We're very. You're living in my country. We have a much of a Western life, as we do a Pakistani life, really. But I can say, hand on heart, that I could not be happier. And actually, I feel so lucky that I've met someone who's not from my culture, just because I feel like it's offered me so much more in life. And I think that's great for anyone who is, who ends up with someone who maybe isn't from their culture, because I think it's nice. I think you gain a lot more from it. So, yeah, I think that's... is that all your questions, or have you got some more?
Let's see. That's enough for now. I think we have covered few main things that we wanted to touch upon.
Yeah.
We'll leave the rest for next video, probably before or after once she's visited Pakistan, and we'll do another video. So for now, I think that's pretty much it. And thank you so much for watching. And do you want to add anything before we close?
I guess just I hope that I've come across with everything that I wanted to say, and with the most passion that I wanted to share, because I genuinely do have such a warm place in my heart for Pakistan, and I love so much about the way you've been raised and the culture you've brought to my life now. So and then anybody who's thinking about going, yes, do your research and find out a little bit about what to expect, but don't let these other opinions get in your head. Make your own opinions up and travel anywhere you want, but just go with an open mind and come back and actually calculate that for yourself, and make your own thoughts, I think, is the most important thing. But I guess that's all for the time being, and I hope that you've enjoyed watching and found it interesting, found out a little bit more about me. Anyway, I guess we'll say take care for now, and we will see you again next time, perhaps for a recipe. Take care.
Thank you for watching, and bye for now.
Goodbye.